Hey everyone, welcome to this show. This is kind of a last minute thing. We have myself and David are going to be talking with Matt and Josh, just kind of a friendly chat regarding our debate that we had on the 7th, which was, does Calvinism create non-believers? So I'm going to let me unmute you guys. And David, why don't you introduce yourself, and then Josh, and then Matt.
All right. Once again, Dave Lewis. Am I coming through good? Because I'm just on my data.
Yeah, you're fine right now.
You're good.
All right, cool. So Dave Lewis, YouTube page is Apologetics from the Attic. 39 years old, married, 4 kids. Yeah.
Very
That's
cool.
me.
How about you, Josh?
I am, of course, Josh. I run the Chaos in Order YouTube channel, and I am also a rapper from Missouri. I make music about reality. I make music about the consequences of people's actions, like drugs, greed, etc. And I also do apologetics concerning Calvinism, Islam, Unitarianism, and atheism.
Very cool. And Matt, how about you?
Hey, I'm Matthew Salih. I know that Marlon got my last name wrong, but I don't know. I'm 37 years old as of Sunday. You know, after a while, it's kind of like, so what? But yeah, I have a ministry called The Father's Well, a living spring in dry places. Every Sunday and Wednesdays, if we can, we get together and we go through the Bible in a series, or we'll go through just certain doctrinal concerns in a whole series. I love to teach in a series, and we try to make sure that it is as full and as well-rounded as possible. So not only will we go through scripture, but we'll go through the relevance of anything in the early church and all the way up until today, and even including the Old Testament and the ancient Near Eastern world. And so by the end, the person just has a bit more of a grounded, more sober type of, worldview when it comes to the Word of God. They come away with a lot more clarity. And of course, we get together. We pray together. Right now, we're doing Lent together. And so it helps when, we're to do things together. And it's been on a good run, and I'm blessed by that. Married, I have a stepson so far, and more to come, Lord willing. Other than that, I wouldn't say that I'm an apologist. I definitely do respect, everyone who definitely, goes into that. But I don't know, my heart just has a different nature. So I guess you could say that I'm someone that does apologetics, but really, I'm just more of, evangelical and, things like that. But other than that, yeah.
Well, sounds good. Well, just to bring everyone up to speed real quick, we had a debate on April 7th, which was a few days ago. It was Matt and Josh were in the affirmative position that Calvinism does create non-believers, and David and I were in the negative position. So if you haven't watched it, there's going to be a link. If it's not already, there's a link in the description. And there was an after show that we did as well. And then these two gentlemen could not make the after show, so we kind of just put this together. We'll probably hang out here for about an hour. I know there's some time constraints, so we'll play that by ear. But why don't you, Matt and Josh, why don't you guys jump in and kind of tell us what you want to get going on here?
You go ahead, Matt. I'll go after.
Okay, sure. If you look at the debate, I don't know what was up, but there was something on my audio, and I basically just had to jump in and be like, boom. I didn't get to kind of say what was on my heart, anything at all. Like, hey, none of that. It was just like, go. I felt bad about that. So to make a long story real short, what I was going to say at the beginning in my intro was that, this discussion was not about, this is not about, is Calvinism true? Is Calvinism false? And that it was none of that.
And I kind of felt like it got into that.
Oh, I knew it would, but another thing is that I was going to talk about my journey into like how I listened to so many deconversion stories. I read a lot of deconversion stories. I tried my best to get inside the mind of an atheist, and inside the minds of those who had issues with Calvinism. I really wanted to know, and my whole thing was I just wanted to find patterns trends. And I said in the debate that the issue that I found with Calvinism was unique. And so, yeah, there were lots of things that I was saying that I just tried to stick to it because I knew that if I didn't, it really wasn't going to get addressed. And a lot of it really didn't get addressed. But I think that's because it was a debate. And so if you just look at what I presented, all I did was I just looked into the past and I looked into the present and I tried to find common trends of like what's going on with people's reactions to Calvinism and was it unique? And my findings were, yeah, it was. It definitely was, and there's other things I found that were unique to like Pentecostalism and then, charismatic stuff, a lot of New Agers kind of get their way into there. It's almost like every denomination has a bit of a shadow, not all shadows are the same, you know what I mean? And so that's just the way I looked at it. And I noticed that, that was trying to be a bit more generalized. Whereas me, I was like, no. I looked in history, y'all. This issue is specific, and that's one of the things that I kept noticing about the debate. Like, yes, we see what you found, Matt, but the problem is you got it over here too, or you could find it over here too. And it's like, yeah, you're right. I can find it over there, there, and there. But the problem is when I look at your camp, it's this big. And I said that in the debate. But over in other places, it's like, okay, you found it, and so that's why I wanted to talk about, like, okay, so why is that happening? What's going on? Can we talk about it? And that was it. That was pretty much it.
And I would add to that by saying, yeah, I mean, that's definitely true that there are things in every camp that cause people to not believe. But in the end, what we were arguing is first off that there seems to be a unique thing, is that there seems to be a unique effect in Calvinism that's not found in these camps. We're not saying that there aren't things in every camp that lead people away. What we're saying is that there's a unique thing about it. We say that because that there are things in the Calvinistic theology that are what many people would consider repulsive, what many would consider contradictory, and many other things. However, and I would also add to that by saying that just because other things, that even if those arguments do apply to other camps, then all we're really doing is appealing to tu quoque fallacies. And this is a textbook example of a very common logical error. Many people use this, and I'd say that was a very common one that was used. I don't think that the evidence from the ancient past, from guys like Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, and all these other guys, I don't believe they were adequately addressed. And I would like to address more about the evidence that was presented. And so I'm kind of with Matt. I think I'd like to get to
Got it. So just a couple of quick thoughts on Matt. I did mute you, Matt. So if you jump back in, just unmute you because I heard some background. So I guess a couple of things I'm going to ask is what makes this quote unquote evidence actual evidence, and what makes this objective, saying, okay, here's a string of people. And I want to hit that in a second. And then also I want to hit that one reason I think we went to Calvinism in general, and we're defending whatever. I mean, we didn't really have a position other than we're Calvinists, and so we're de facto guilty of being part of the system or something. But don't you think that most of your arguments did reach the correlation equals causation fallacy, where this stuff happens? Because I could take what Josh said, I could probably word that verbatim and say these are our problems with Christianity, because there's tons of people that left with talking with Christ, talking with Paul. So I don't know. So I guess first, why is this objective evidence specific to Calvinism?
Can I start this one,
and
sir?
so, yeah, go ahead.
Do you mind if I start this time, Matt?
Go ahead. Yep.
All right. We say that this is evidence because in the end, like one of the questions that was asked during the Q&A was like, how do you know these people are lying or whatever? And of course I responded and said, why would they lie about it? What could they possibly hope to gain by lying about it? Because if they did that and then they get caught later, no one's going to listen to them. I would say they would have a lot more to gain by telling the truth than by lying. But anyways, the reason why this is objective evidence as to why is because these people were Calvinists. They fit the criteria of the mainstream Calvinists, and the doctrine. And like I said, in Megan Phelps, she left specifically because of how a Calvinist interpreted Romans 9. Derek Webb, he specifically left because he couldn't solve the contradiction between total depravity and perseverance of the saints. We didn't get to Rachel Slick yet, so we'll probably talk about that here in a bit. But those are just two examples of many people. And of course, evidence from the ancient past, like Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson. People seem to not be able to reconcile the ability of God decreeing all of man's actions, including the evil ones, and be able to reconcile man's responsibility. And I say the reason you can't reconcile that is because it's exactly the same thing as trying to reconcile a square circle. It's a contradiction. But anyways, that's all I'm going to say for now.
Can I
you say?
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Dave.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I can. Yeah, I mean, so this is more of a just this comment about how you guys' opening statement was presented. Like Matt, you had a lot of quotes that you read, right? Which were fine. But if you would have extracted from those quotes the doctrinal positions that you believe represented Calvinism in those quotes, and we would have debated that, I think the debate would have went better because, like you just did there, Josh, like I'm trying to sort out, okay, you have individuals who this is their testimony. So if the point you guys are trying to make is there's these people in history who had an association with Calvinism and then they, departed from the faith. Okay, that's fine. But also, what are the doctrinal positions that they took, right, that you say represent a Calvinist approach? You see what I'm saying? Like in a debate, and it seems like we kept going back and forth between the two. Like there's these people who had these positions, and then what are the actual doctrinal positions that you feel when people encounter them in Calvinism, it causes them to say, whoa, I can't go there. That, I don't like the way that presents God. I don't like the way that presents man. And Josh, even in your opening statement, you did say, I forget what 3 points you made, but the first two I remember were you're going to show the philosophical problems with Calvinism. And,
that's what I meant.
The tulip.
That's what I kind of did.
Which never ended up happening in either of your opening statement.
That was more, said throughout the debate. I said throughout the debate, meaning.
Well, in the crossfire, you're not supposed to. Well, debating 101, you're in the crossfire, you're not supposed to demonstrate anything in the crossfire. In the crossfire, you're supposed to, test the other consistency of the other position.
I disagree.
Asking questions.
I disagree because that's exactly what I meant.
I guess.
Hang on. That's what I'm saying that's exactly what I'm saying is that's what we aim to do. That's what we aim to do with the crossfire was we aim to prove that tulip was philosophically contradictory with the questions that I had. Notice how I asked questions about total depravity and limited atonement and stuff like that. And I also asked about perseverance of the saints. So I claim to do that by asking questions related to such. That's how I did that. So,
my issue is this.
I was gonna say.
You want to jump in? Okay.
I'm trying to wait for everyone to go, and then after that, I was gonna bring it back to the question he originally asked, but I didn't want to get in the way of the chaos. So you can go ahead.
Yeah. Well, just real quick because. Look, I brought up vaguely, but the Barna Group, the Pew Research, the Dr. Marriott wrote a book. There's tons of people leaving Christianity in the SBC, and these aren't Calvinist churches. I don't think that's good evidence for saying I would never use that evidence and say, therefore, provisionism or Arminianism or whatever it is wrong because evidence requires some actual evidence. So you'd have to show these people.
That's
all right. They're pinky swearing that they left because of they hated the way Calvinists interpret Romans 9 or whatever it is. It could be a plethora of stuff, but the evidence would have to say that Calvinism inherently is creating non-believers, and I don't think that's metaphysically even possible.
I disagree, but how can you say that's not metaphysically possible? Go ahead, Matt.
No, I mean, I just want to make sure everyone's done.
That's all I'm saying. Is
Yeah, go ahead.
To say that that's metaphysically impossible, that's not true, first off. But anyways, that's all I'm going to say. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay. So, yeah, as long as everyone's done.
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah. So the original question that David asked, from what I can remember, there was a two-part, but I can only remember one. You know, he really wanted to know.
I have the debate. I can pull it up if you need to hear it.
No, I'm good. You know, original question that he asked was, he wanted to ask what were the doctrinal positions as to why people were rejecting not just Calvinism, but just leaving God altogether.
Right.
And you know, the issue is, what does that sound?
I think someone's playing. Are you playing something, Josh? It was a little feedback.
No, but I'll mute my mic.
Yeah. And you know, that's the issue. The issue is that, you know, this is what I said earlier, that we weren't here to debate whether or not that Calvinism was false or whether Calvinism was true. You know, to go ahead and deal with the doctrinal positions as the reason why they left, as innocent as that sounds, that would get us right into what I just got done saying that we're here not to do. Yeah, I mean, it literally would, and it would bypass dealing with, hey, this is what these people did. Let's talk about it. You know, so it's, yeah, I definitely wouldn't mind doing that. But I think that the question is, okay, what is your response to what these people have said? Now, the second thing he said is that, you know, really, it sounded like he asked, or he said, were these people, you know, Calvinists, or there was something of a bit of a qualifier about the people in order to go ahead and validate whatever it is that they were saying. You know, that's basically what it sounded like he was kind of asking. And again, I think that right there, that kind of puts like a barrier between, this is what we found, let's talk about it. Because I mean, just think about it. My whole thing was, and I'm just gonna keep saying this until like we start to interact with it, is as innocent as snow. Calvinism was brought about. Then all of a sudden, I started to look at what people within Calvinism did, their reactions, their theological reactions. I showed one of them was deism, right? And we could get into the theological reasons why people chose deism. I think it's very obvious as to why people flowed into deism. From there, naturally came atheism. You know, if you can't confirm that someone is interacting with you and you say they're no longer interacting with you, how do you know they're over there in the first place? So therefore, atheism crept in. And this is all I was showing with, you know, my evidence, you know. And then after that, you know, I went from the historical over to testimonial, like what people were actually saying, you know. And I wanted to hear like what you guys had to say about them. You know, now it is true that, hey, maybe some didn't even enter into Calvinism, right? Like Megan Phelps and things. And really, my presentation, I had to cut it short. There were things in there that just didn't make it in, and that was a whole nother discussion. But that, I think that was the issue. So why I don't mind, you know, dealing with the doctrinal reasons behind whatever, but really people like Preet Wilson, you know, that person, one of the many people that I read, out of the 8 or 7 or 6 people that I ever had behind her, like these people did not end up knowing as much about Calvinism as you have, you know, but they'll tell you what their experience is. You know what I mean? So it's not like you're going to get these people who are, you know, they're really up here with it. No, some people, they'll go in to Presbyterianism, whatever it is, you know, they'll absorb what they absorb, right?
The issue
might not be mass savants, but
if I could jump in here, the issue I have
is
All right. So I used to be a special agent at a federal in the feds. And so I look at evidence and I'm like, this, like, say this was in a court, none of this stuff would be evidence to prove that, say Calvinism was on trial, the system of Calvinism, right? None of that would be evidence to prove anything. That would be like having drug dealers proving that, you know, drugs made the person kill someone or whatever it is. But the system of Calvinism is made up of Calvinists. And as some people were saying in the quotes, I mean, if Calvinism inherently created non-believers, then why aren't we all non-believers, or most of us, or a huge percentage of us?
I would.
People want to
quick,
blame
hold on,
something.
Josh. No, hold on, Josh.
People want to blame. Of course, someone's going to have something to blame. If they came, the Phelps, I would never have trusted her before she even claimed whatever. I mean, she was out of the crazy church. There's my point is, it's not the U2 fallacy to say, well, then you'd have to at least admit that Christ created unbelievers, Paul created unbelievers because of the hard teaching. And so if they're saying Calvinism has hard teaching, I think it is applicable to show us, like David said, to show us where, which doctrine it is, because you'd have to prove Calvinism's false. Because if you guys were assuming Calvinism's true, then so what? Of course, people.
Can I pause you real quick?
Sure.
Yeah. So I want you to notice that, like, a good majority of what you were saying was one about the court case and the judge and the court. And, you know, I agree with you. Yeah. You know, if we were to go ahead and like take it to a court, like legally, oh man, I already know that I would lose. I think that's very evident. It's like, duh, of course I would lose. That's a no-brainer. You know, but the second thing is that I'm noticing that, you know, directly after that, you kept saying statements about whether or not Calvinism was false or true, and I keep saying that that's not what I'm here to go ahead and debate. Obviously, right? That's not what it is, and it's you know, does Calvinism create unbelievers? And
but the assumption,
I noticed it, but I noticed
though,
you said inherently. I noticed that you said, like, does it inherently create unbelievers? And I wouldn't say inherently. You know what I mean? Obviously, no.
No, of course not.
What I'm ultimately saying, and I'll try to boil it down to this one more time. If you look at every Christian denomination, I think it's abundantly, like, common sense clear that every denomination has like this unique, specific, particular kind of counterpart challenge, kind of like in Justice League, or, you know, kind of like with the Avengers. You know, every one of them has like a superpower, you know, but the problem is every one of them has like a unique weakness. You know what I mean? Of course, Superman or Batman is not, like, his weakness is not kryptonite. You know what I mean?
But Batman doesn't.
But it is innocent people. You know, something like, or something real specific to, I don't know, maybe it's.
But if you get so going back,
you know
to
what I mean?
the basics of that. So if you guys are, this is an important issue to you guys, I totally get it, right? It wouldn't. It's because you disagree. It's because you disagree with Calvinism, and you can
actually,
a lot of people do, and a lot of you can shape that up to it's a horrid doctrine of demons from there to. Yeah, there you go. So Josh says that to maybe someone's like, well, you know, I can see what they're saying, but I just don't agree with it. And you have all in between. So
once again, I gotta pause you right there again.
Hang on, Matt.
No, wait. Let me
say something.
Okay, because I just got it real quick. But go ahead.
I know David probably wants to jump in too.
Yeah. I say that actually you don't have to presuppose the truth. I say in that debate, actually, you don't have to presuppose the idea that Calvinism is false. Because even if Calvinism is true, it doesn't matter. I'm saying we're not here to argue whether it's true. You don't have to presuppose it. It can be true, but that doesn't mean it won't still lead people away. I mean, we could presuppose the truth of our position, but that doesn't mean people still don't get led away from it. We're arguing that there's a unique thing. You said it was an emotional response, but that's really just a straw man of their responses to it. Their responses were logical responses, not emotional. But the problem is, even if you say it's an emotional response, you're still affirming that Matt and I are right, because that's still a negative response. So
okay.
Go ahead. That's all.
Okay, so just real quick, I just want to say this real quick why he said it. You know, again, you're saying that the problem is we just don't like Calvinism, and it is really, really, it's really hard. It's a hard belief. And again, like, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. And matter of fact, maybe I'll go to, instead of repeat myself, I'll just go to give you an example. Okay. Of instead of just saying no, the problem is I'm seeing that it's like causing unbelievers. I'm going to give you an example. Okay. I said this in my presentation. And I was finding this stuff out the blue. This, you know what I mean? This stuff was jumping out at me. All right. This is what I was trying to be all hyper. No, this is totally unbiased. Arno Gablin, 1800s. Okay. You saw it. He had a nice little magazine that he was doing. He met A.W. Pink. A.W. Pink did some great work in some areas. Then after that, he had a magazine person who bought his magazines, asked him a question like, hey, what's up with this A.W. Pink guy? I see he's part of your roster. What do you think about him? You know, or what have you thought about him in the past or whatever? And yeah, he said, look, he's great in Genesis and everything else, but when it comes to what he preached about Calvinism, not only did he give his view, but it was the ending part that was most striking. He said, look, man, that's the kind of stuff that creates atheists. Now, come up to today. I gave a question, and my question and answer about, and this is based on like people's experiences and stuff like that I've heard, where people will hear about how God decreed for just about, just everything that happened in their life, like good or bad. And they don't know what to do. I've seen them go through that. Preet Wilson, for example. Derek Webb, for example, who had the same exact verbatim issue I did when he said he was, quote unquote, waiting for the grace of God to change him. That was the same thing that I had. When I started to see those patterns, I started to see like, oh, so this is the reason why people have this pushback. And that's the reason why Preet Wilson said, you know what, I became an atheist for a time and I hated God for a time. And it's the same thing with everyone else. You start to see that you have this unique reaction where it's like, yo, if God is not on my side to that level, why even have a relationship with him anyway? So it was this pushback that I saw that was unique that I didn't see in Pentecostalism, Methodism, Lutheranism, Roman Catholicism. What I mean? So that's all I was trying to say. And I looked at that right there and I said, look at that. That's an issue. Whatever's causing it. I'll even be like, look, y'all don't have to let go of what you believe, but maybe there's a way where you can say certain things where it will result in a reduction of that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that, I really wanted us to talk about that, but instead, and I'm not saying y'all doing this on purpose, but we're getting what we got in the debate, what we're getting tonight. It's too hard.
The main issue. Let me say this real quick, and I'm gonna let David jump in. The main issue, in my opinion, is that we're coming off systems that are built on different chassis because we don't presuppose that man can just willy-nilly choose, and it's like, all right, well, Calvinism's harsher, so I'm gonna go over to Joel Osteen's church, and he said I could pray for a new car. Like that's just a bunch of man's will stuff. I mean, for us, the presuppositions are totally off. But David, jump in, man.
Well, no, I just want so what you're saying is, see, the way Calvinists explain the problem of evil is the issue, right?
Not entirely.
No, I didn't even bring up the problem of evil.
No.
That's what you just said. You just said God decrees good and evil. That's the issue.
No. I never. No. I never said verbatim quote God decrees good and evil.
But I'm asking you directly now. What are the doctrinal issues of Calvinism that create unbelievers?
Okay, what are the doctrinal issues of Calvinism that create unbelievers?
Yes.
So far, there's one doctrinal trend that I do see that does have an interesting reaction throughout the ripples of history. And it's that one where it says that that God decreed every single solitary thing that does come to pass in this universe to come to pass. Like every single solitary. It's that one. Now, it's just one of many. But if I were to pick one, that would be the one that really just causes the average person to stop and be like, wait a minute. And then they start thinking, and then from there they start putting stuff together, and it causes this unique worry that I see uniquely in Calvinism.
Can I say something about that as well? And the thing that is unique about Calvinism is, unless you're like the only other person this could maybe apply to is like a Jehovah's Witness who believes in the 144,000 people going to heaven. Which unless you believe that, then the only other belief this can apply to is Calvinism. Is the fact that total depravity makes it impossible for you to be certain if you're really serving God. Unconditional election means your salvation is up to God, not you. So you can't even be for sure God chose you. Limited atonement, you don't even know for sure if Jesus died for you. If irresistible grace is true, then you can basically just say, well, it's not really up to me anyway. So if God calls to me, then I won't be able to resist anyway. And perseverance of the saints is contradicted by the fact that people leave the faith. And somebody commented on in the super chat about my question about saying, like, how can that person have a genuine desire? Said, like, therefore, it's right there. That's why your question was flawed, because you can't know that. The problem is, I'm not claiming to know that in person's intentions. The Calvinist is. The Calvinist is claiming to show that they can know that person's intentions by the fact that they didn't persevere. We don't have that problem. We don't claim to know. We believe that you can have a genuine faith and walk away from it. You don't. You don't believe you can have a genuine faith. Or at least if you're consistent with total depravity and perseverance of the saints, you can. But either way, we're saying that the reason why people leave is because they see contradictions between God's decree, between God's unchangeable decree and the free will of man. And the responsibility.
Josh, if I believe what you just said, I'd probably leave Calvinism too. I don't agree. I don't agree with that. All those suppositions on the points. I mean,
I'm just saying, if you're consistent.
Well, we can go through them, but
yeah. But can I say so? So I mean, historically, right? I mean, I guess my point would be the issue of theodicy, the relationship between evil, there being a creator who's all powerful, right, and all loving, is not an issue in history that only when the Calvinists came on the scene did people struggle with the idea that there's a God who created the universe. He's in control. He's loving. He's all powerful. Yet I'm suffering. So if I frame it that way, I wonder if that helps. Like, I understand what you guys are saying. You're specifically looking at stories of people who said, I came out of Calvinism. Here's my problems with Calvinism. But what I'm saying to you is, if we go before John Calvin was even born, okay, this issue has been in existence. And I mean, all the way back to the book of Job, right? The first book written in the Bible, okay? The oldest book. Some scholars say it's the oldest, book we have in the Bible. It's older than the Torah. So that is wrestling, right, with this idea of there is a good, loving, sovereign God, yet here is Job suffering with evil. So I guess my thing is, I understand what you guys are saying. You're focusing on Calvinism because that was the debate, and we understand that. But I mean, I just want to broaden it out and let you guys know, like, you guys agree, right, that this is not a unique issue to Calvinism. No. This is theism.
Can I say something?
God, positing a creator God who's all powerful and all loving, okay, creates this problem in any Christian system, okay, and that's why, I don't know if you guys saw the after show, but Doug, the atheist, he came on, and he would say that you guys have no more satisfying answer to the problem of evil than a Calvinist does. That's his.
Oh yeah, I know that. Yeah, that's a whole nother. That's a whole nother can of.
Not a whole nother.
No, it's part of it.
Oh yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Oh yes, it is. Allow me to explain. Yeah, it is. Can you allow me to explain why?
Go ahead, man.
Okay, great. So, like I said, I firmly stand on what Derek or not Derek, but what Pine Creek has said, that we definitely do have an issue with the problem of evil, but I just think it's in a very different, unique way. But let me go back onto what we're talking about with Job. Now, you just said that, hey, I hear your particularism, Matt, but you just said, quote, I'm really making it general, not because I'm trying to be biased, but because, hey, I looked in the past and some things and I seen some stuff where it seemed general. And your reference wasn't Augustine or anything like that. It was Job. And so here's the issues I take with that, which is the reason why I say it's still particular to you. One, look at this story. This is a story about a God, a devil, a man, and his family. And we could even put in, his friends and things.
Right.
And we can definitely see, obviously, that, God and the devil, they were talking, and God, the devil made some jests and some bet with God and things like that. And God said, nope, that's my man. Matter of fact, I'll prove it to you. I'll allow you to go ahead and do what you do. Just don't kill him. And we all know the story. Some bad things happen to a good guy that said, I would wish my arm would break if I did not give to the poor. Right? We know the story, And from there, in the end, he had twice as much more kids and everything was good in the end, And after that, that was it.
I think
I think there's a huge difference between that story right there about that one man and a God over here that decrees every single solitary thing that ever is to come to pass will come to pass. And it's like, man, the God and the devil, they don't even need to talk. And don't even need to be no talk. Like, he's out the picture. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's very different than that, because you have, this person that is depending on God, but God is the one, that's deciding what to do with this person. They don't know whether or not they're elect. They can have some faith, they can have assurance of certain kind of things and like that, but you don't really know till the end. So that person goes through things that I see Job would never go through. Job, you already had the devil ended up, hacking at him, right? And of course, God allowed it. That's different from, God himself
decreeing,
going ahead and decreeing the good or the bad in your life. And in the end, I'm going to decide whether you're elect or not. And there's no way you can objectively know. You know what I mean? Like, you can have some kind of, hope and assurance to know you're elect. Maybe you got some works that you're doing or some kind of fruit that you're bearing. But then again, in the end, if you fall away, then what does it say about your fruits? What does it say about the Holy Ghost that was in you? Well, maybe it was some other Holy Ghost. What does it say about the pastor that witnessed you going through all these things? And well, maybe he was deceived too. And so, so you see all these things that are very unique that people go through today. And guess what? They don't reference Job. They don't. If you were to compare them, maybe you can find some general similarity somewhere. But in the big picture, there is too many particulars in Calvinism that Job never went through.
And the thing is,
ever.
And
that's a problem.
I kind of disagree with Matt's interpretation of Job. If you look at Job 1:1 and Genesis 6:9, it says the very same thing about Noah that it says about Job, but it leaves out one thing about Job that it said about Noah. Noah walked with God. Job did not walk with God. The reason why God allowed what happened to Job had a warped view of God. And God allowed it to happen. And you can see that in chapter 3, because chapter 3, then Job starts writing a love letter to death, and it says, if you love death, you don't love God. But anyways, that's not the point. But either way, that's what we're saying is, the problem of evil is not special. It's the answer that turns people away. Our answer is that people freely choose to do evil, and God says, I take that choice into account and try to bring the best good out of it. Your answer only confirms what the atheist is trying to prove. So in this case, is that God is responsible for that evil. That's why That's why your view causes it, because your view proves what they're trying to prove.
Well, Josh, two things real quick. One is, let me give you both things, and David has a question, or a comment. Where does it say Job had a warped view of God again?
Yeah, I never
said it in the scripture, but he seems to see God as
Where'd you get it from? When
you look at it, hang on, let me explain. When you look at it carefully, like I said, the way he acted didn't really seem like the behavior of a genuine servant until chapter 3. Because like if that stuff had happened to me, I wouldn't have necessarily been mad at God, but I would have been asking, why did you let this happen? He just said,
I don't know about. Hey, look, by the end of the day, I'm gonna say everybody's human. You know what I mean? I think Job had a human moment, but in the end, what did he say? He said, God gives and God takes away.
I don't know.
Blessed be the name of the Lord.
Let David jump in here.
But either way,
I'm sorry. I know. We shouldn't be going back and forth when we're talking to y'all. I know, Dave. He's right.
I just David's on his phone, so it's harder for him to jump in because.
I know. Go ahead, Dave.
Go ahead.
Let me make a point. This is one thing. A lot of the feedback I got on the debate is this exact thing that just happened. Is you guys, there was a lot of disagreements that people noticed between the two of you during the debate. Number two, it's true though. You guys did disagree a lot. Now, number two. I would say, Josh, what you said about the free will defense, my position would be that is the exact position of Job's friends that you just articulated. You just perfectly articulated Job's friends' answer. Listen, Job aren't using your free will properly, Job. Job, if you would have used your free will and obeyed God, you wouldn't be suffering. That's exactly the position of the friends. And at the end of the day, what is the answer? Let me finish. What's the answer to the theodicy in Job? It's God appearing to Job and saying, where were you when I made the universe? I can do whatever I want with my creation, Job. I can do whatever I please with you. And then Job said, I repent in dust and ashes. I did not know what I was even talking about. So, I mean, we're not going to agree, but those who have tuned into this, I want you to hear this very clearly. The free will theodicy is, in fact, the theodicy that Job's friends articulate and gets rebuked. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, actually, I agree there.
I'm confused. I don't understand how you come to that.
You didn't prove that. You presupposed that. Where in that area does he ever say or contradict the idea that Job has free will? That idea does not contradict it at all. It's a non sequitur.
Well, it's because of the passages. I mean, you just presuppose that Job wasn't walking with God, but the passages of Job.
It says the same thing about Noah, except that. That's the only thing that's not repeated. The fact that it left that out about Job.
I mean, then by the end of the day, it could really just be an argument from silence, to be honest. You know what I mean? So. But real quick, I just did want to say, I said what I said. I was hoping somebody had something to say, or you need me to repeat it.
Either way,
Matt,
that's really
I think the conversation naturally goes to these sub pieces of the theodicy and all this stuff, because I think that's such. A Calvinist looks at all of this stuff in a big view from start to finish, the story of redemption. And I think, if I could say this, that you guys like to put every little piece in a vacuum. And so when that happens is you're not relating problems of evil with the argument, just like you want us to only defend all of the anecdotal evidence from these people that said why they left Calvinism. But if we bring up the merits of Calvinism, well, I don't know, that's a separate topic. But for us, everything's on the same chassis. It's all one piece.
Okay.
It's like we can't debate limited atonement necessarily, and to be like, well, you can't bring up anything else. I mean, it's kind of it's like a glove, right? All 5 fingers on a hand.
Okay, I think I see what you mean now. Basically, you're saying, hey, like, I hear you're making a really big issue of concern on your heart that's here, but the issue is when you talk with us, we're not just going to talk about that because it's all connected, and I have no problem with that. If that's the way y'all get down, hey, that's cool. You know what I mean? That's like family. You know,
fair.
hey, you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. You know, and that's
Sure.
cool. That's fine. My whole thing is as I get down the way y'all want to get down, I'm just hoping that in the end that, you know, my little concern over here doesn't get like lost in the jungle, and then in the end it's like, oh, we talked about this.
So
I don't think we
Matt,
got down on that much. You know what I mean?
State your concern. Matt, state your concern. I'm gonna get in 30 seconds or less. Please state your concern again, so we can understand it.
Yeah, and I'll do a particular so we can, like, you know, kind of help us out the conversation. My concern is this. Oh, I thought he says anyway. Yeah, so my concern is this, and I'll start with a particular. Of all the testimonies that I've read and I've listened to, the one trend that stands out, number one, amidst of all the others, is the one doctrine where it says that God had decreed every single solitary thing that ever has come to pass. Like, if it happens in real time, God decreed it, and that is the one particular issue that seems to, you know, cause a whole rift of other things that people go through, and they're trying to understand, like, where they fit in terms of the Lord, you know, where it leads into all these other things that you guys are talking about, you know, total depravity, unconditional election, you know, reprobation, predestination. Like, it goes into all that, and, you know, so that is my issue, because in the end, the person ends up not being able to trust God, and in the end, they just kind of leave, you know, and I think that's unnecessary. That doesn't have to happen.
Someone said in the super chat that that free will is now, there's no such thing as free will when hell is a consequence. I think I said that correctly.
This one here, John. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. When the consequence of an eternal hell is on the table, that's a non sequitur fallacy. That doesn't logically follow at all. I don't know where that came from. To say, in fact, if there's only one choice, I would argue there isn't free will, because if universalism is true, that all people go to heaven, then there's no such thing as free will. Or if there's two destinations, but it's not really up to you to which one you go, or in this case, God, as the Calvinist preaches, then that's not free will, which seems to be contradicted.
So
go ahead.
If I can jump in here. So I can do this in like 2 minutes, because one of the last things before we go that I was really curious about is, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Go on.
Josh, you seem to kick us out of the kingdom of God because we're Calvinists. Matt, you didn't seem to go that far, you know. So I want to get my hand around that real quick, because so in 2 minutes, here's how I view this whole debate in general, right? Just like a big sweeping thing, right? You have, and I did a video on this, a little plug for my channel, my first video I ever did. It's called Catholic, Evangelical, and Reformed. Okay. So the way I think through these issues is to say, are we Catholic? Small c, right? The Trinity, the deity of Christ, right? The Nicene Creed, the Apostles' Creed, the authority of Scripture, right? Like, are we all down with that, right? So let's find that unity first, right? Before we jump to division, right? Layer 2, evangelical. Okay, and this is where I'm curious about you guys, because, you know, this is where you get into, are you Protestant or not, right? Do you have Protestant commitments? You know, what's your position on the Protestant Reformation, on the 5 solas, for example, right? And then, so we got to get down with that. Then the next layer is when you get to Reformed, right? The 5 points of Calvinism. So for me, right, you know, you'd be shocked. I'm ordained a Reformed Baptist, and I have accountability with eldership that is Reformed Baptist, but I actually attend a non-Calvinist church right now, and my pastor is not a Calvinist. Okay. So, you know, and that might interest you to know that, okay? Because the way I think through it is, when I look at the two of you, right, the way I'm going to look at you is, I'm going to say, is this dude Catholic, small c, And then is he evangelical? And I even, I'll get some fire. But I don't know if you guys saw the video, Wimpy Calvinism. So we're getting fire from
I
both
seen it.
sides.
I saw it.
And I
I saw that. Yeah, I
and
saw
I
that.
think he's absolutely
So what
right,
I'm
though.
saying is, I'll get some fire for this one, right? I'm even willing with a Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox to not assume de facto, because they're Eastern Orthodox or Roman Catholic, that they've rejected the evangel, right? Oh, you must not understand the gospel. You know what I mean? Like I kick you out of the kingdom. Okay, I'm not going to do that. Okay, I just don't function that way. Okay, that's between them and God at the end of the day. So that's how I look at it. Now I just wondered, and you two can both respond to this, because I wonder how you, and you guys might have a difference here, because I could sense one in the debate, and that's why I want to use this time to clear it up, right? So do you guys feel that because we de facto call ourselves Calvinists, that we must thereby reject Catholic theology, small c, and evangelical theology, and therefore Calvinism de facto makes us not saved? Like we're heretics.
It depends on the
I'll let
Okay.
you guys go.
All right, can I go first, Josh?
Sure.
Universalism, right? Universal, right? Catholic, universal. I would definitely say, of course, you're with us. We already talked about the Trinity, right? Those type of traditional things. Evangelical. If you're talking about like preaching the gospel and things like that, I would definitely say in terms of like, I guess like some kind of general creed. Now we can kind of disagree on what the content of that is. But if our hearts and our intentions and our actions are to go ahead and reconcile people to God, we may not agree about the things that we're saying. But if it's causing people to come into the faith, then once again, I would say yes. And this once again just goes back. I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I don't know what else to say. Doctrinally, we're going to talk about all these doctrines and things, and like I said, the issue is Calvinism doctrinally orthodoxy true? Is it in line with, biblical script? The issue was not that, So, again, the issue on the topic was, does Calvinism, create unbelievers? Or in other words, is there something that's going on in Calvinism that really is pumping out a lot of unbelievers or shaky people? Like, is there something there, like a doctor looking at someone's body, like, hey, do I see a symptom? And I keep saying, yes. Can we talk about that?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like the doctrines, we talk about doctrines all day. I'm really serious. We talk about a TULIMP. That's fine. I just don't want to leave these people out over here, what they're saying, their experiences, what's going on with them, why they're leaving. Like, no, man, no. I don't want people leaving the hospital. Come on back in here. That's what I wanted to talk about. Can we talk about that? And what we can do? Like, so, I mean, and I'm always kind of noticing, even right now, it's kind of hard for us to talk about that because we keep going back into the doctrine, things like that. If the doctrine is related to what's going on with these people and let's talk about it, cool. But if the doctrine is related to, is Calvinism true or false? But now we're gonna go off into another topic that I wouldn't mind having. It's just not this one. So I hear what you're saying. It's a great video. I'm definitely gonna watch it. Please send me the link. I definitely want to see it.
Now can I respond real quick?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
To answer your question, I mean, universal preaching, yeah, I agree. Evangelical, I don't think I understood that part, but I mean, I think we all seem to agree on that. As to whether I say all Calvinists are heretics, no, because I'm aware that there are different kinds of Calvinists. There are Calvinists that deny that God decreed all things, including the actions of man. There are Calvinists who deny double predestination. There are Calvinists who deny limited atonement, etc. I say it depends on what exactly you agree with. If you believe that, if you believe
a 5-point Calvinist.
there's 5-point Calvinists, there's 4-point Calvinists, etc. So no, not all Calvinists. It just depends on which you accept and which you deny. Now a hyper Calvinist absolutely is not a Christian, because a hyper Calvinist says that God is the author of sin and all that. I believe that's consistent, but in the end, no, I don't believe all Calvinists are heretics, only certain ones, like Catholics. I don't believe all Catholics are heretics, because there's some Catholics who actually agree that that salvation is not something you can merit or earn through works, the gift of God only. So it just depends on what you believe in Calvinism. I'll still disagree with you. Like if you're a 4-pointer, I'll still disagree with you on the rest of it. But, you get the point. But either way, like Matt said, I think we need to remember the debate was about whether Calvinism causes people to leave the faith.
What's the and Dave, I guess it's about 2 minutes till the hour. I don't know if you have to get off here or what your schedule is, but if you want to say anything else, you can have the floor for a little bit.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I had to plug in my phone here. No, I mean, I'm glad we got that on the table, because that's important to me. For lack of a better term, the ecumenical spirit. That I want these discussions to have, because my camp of Calvinists are the worst at kicking people out of the kingdom of God for having one false misstep in their doctrine. You know what I mean? But I just, and then and back to the debate thing. I think if we redid the debate and we changed the thesis statement to something about does the pastoral care that Calvinists offer to those in suffering cause them to leave the faith, or something like that. I think that would be better at getting at, Matt, what you're trying to get at. You know what I mean? Because it sounds like you want the pastoral care that's offered to someone who's suffering. The Calvinists understand that. And I agree with Derek. I think you can't totally pull the doctrine out of that response, because pastoral care does originate from doctrine, and a lot of times, the way the pastor is going to address an issue with someone has to do with their doctrinal commitment. Sometimes, not always, but I think that I think if that was the thesis, so if we didn't say does Calvinism create unbelievers, but if we took that and narrowed it down a little more, right? What is it about Calvinism? Namely that God decrees everything that comes to pass, good and evil. And then the other thing you're saying, can you trust a God who does that, right? Can you really believe in and trust in a God who would decree all things that come to pass, including the evil and suffering you see around you and you're experiencing? You know what I mean? We got to make the thesis statement a little more, to get at what you're trying to get at. I think we would have made the progress that you wanted to make, Matt. Make it more about that. But that's the last thing I'll say. I do got to jump off, but I'll keep watching, and I'll be driving, but I'll keep watching. You guys
we'll bring on.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you.
The link out there if anyone else.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, man.
I appreciate
it. Yeah.
If it's cool with you, Matt and Josh, I put in the comments. If anyone wants to join the feed, 2, 3 people, we can hang out for a few minutes.
Yeah,
Sure.
And I did want to just kind of just reply to what his suggestion was. To make a long story short, at most, I would have a discussion or a dialogue about it, but I wouldn't have a debate about it.
Yeah,
the topic that topic just has a bit more of a different nature. It just does.
Agreed.
Because for one, we're talking about what a pastor goes through, and so that's more of to be done in like a personal setting, or just a casual discussion. It's not anything to be academically charmed out, because we know that life is very dynamic, and pastors deal with people who are very dynamic. And so to have a debate and on that'd be like a different cog, and that just don't it just don't mix. Now, I would say overall, I wouldn't have I do have an issue with it, because to confine the issue that I'm talking about to be discussed through the medium of a pastor, it kind of ignores the experience and the concern and all the other variables that this person goes through. this person
Sure.
not just talks with a pastor. This person talks with an atheist who used to be a Calvinist. This person talks to a hyper Calvinist, or a Calvinist who doesn't know he's a hyper Calvinist, or a Calvinist who just lets them know what it is, or a Calvinist who doesn't just kind of come out with it. They talk to all types of people, and because of that, on top of all that, they're still trying to go ahead and read and study and weigh out and listen to these lectures of doctrines from R.C. Sproul and John MacArthur, and they're still trying to weigh all this stuff out, and to kind of go ahead and focus on what does the pastor have to say. It'd be like one part, but only as you guys would say, hey, if you want to talk about this part, we got to talk about the whole thing. And so I guess for me, in that position, I would kind of take the same thing, only because I want to deal with whatever, the person is dealing with. Like, hey, this is all their experience. Let's deal with, like, these atheists over here and these other people over here that are all part of, like, what she's saying, because maybe there's some who don't go to a pastor. So what do you do with them? You know what I mean? So that was the reason why I didn't want to, over particularize, hey, let's confine it to a pastor thing, but just simply deal with what it is that people are having an issue with, however it comes through the door.
Right.
But yeah, that was it.
Now, if it was like a more specific debate, like is total depravity biblical, or unconditional election, or double predestination, or whatever, sure, I think a formal debate would fit that nature. But I agree with Matt that, like, if we were going to do something like that or whatever, yeah, I wouldn't want to be confined to that. But I think that would fit more of a discussion context than a formal debate. I think we probably made a mistake having a formal debate rather than a discussion.
Well, it's we took on the conversation. I still don't think the debate topic was necessarily. I still don't think you can prove it. Period. You could have 100 examples.
Agree to disagree, but
correlation doesn't equal causation. It's a fallacy. And I could say, I could say, well, Calvinism's just smoking out the false believers, or I don't know. But that doesn't prove that Calvinism's right. It's the opposite. So, yeah. Hey, we got two folks on here, Martin, and I don't know who this other person is. If you guys want to jump in here, say hi, or if you have any questions for any of us, or
let's go. Is that Lee?
Yeah, no.
What's up? How y'all doing?
Hey, Martin, how are you?
Hey, what's going on?
What's up?
Good. Something's wrong with the auto. Like, I'm listening on my auto. Derek is still speaking. I don't know what's going on. Like, on my auto, Derek is like speaking.
Well, are you watching the YouTube feed?
If you're watching the YouTube feed, that might explain why.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Mute your YouTube feed, or turn off the tab or whatever, and then because it's probably delays 5, 6, 7 seconds.
And while we're waiting for him, I just did want to say real quick that again, it's not about hey, Matt, you can't prove that. I already told you in a court of law, I already know going in there that I would not be able to prove that because of the standards that are required for proof, which is the reason why, if you're going to really ask what I'm trying to do, it's not anything I'm trying to prove. It's something I'm trying to show. You know what I mean? Like, hey, this is what I found. And it's not just, I found these isolated instances. No, this is like common, right. And so that was the reason why.
So what would you guys, and I mentioned this in the opening statement, I think it was the opening.
Yeah.
John 6, the end of John 6, just one example where Christ was talking to them and the disciples at large, not just the 12, but the whole group.
Yeah.
And he kind of doubled down on some hard sayings, and then a bunch of them departed from him, right? Including, and then obviously Judas he alluded to him as a devil. So, to me, it's almost the same thing. It would be like an outsider or maybe a false teacher or from a different sect. Like, oh, look at this Jesus guy. Well, he's causing people to not believe in whatever it is he believes.
Mm-hmm. I think what, well, go. Okay, go ahead, Josh. Go ahead.
Well, you see what I'm saying, though, right? Like, I'm trying to.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but again, it's like we're again, we're arguing that there's a very unique one. In the end, people back then seemed to fall away or whatever because they weren't willing to give something up. Like, for example, when that guy asked him, "Good teacher, what must I do to be saved?" And Jesus said, give up your possessions and follow me. I don't think he would have actually made him do that. He wanted to see if he was willing to, and the guy wasn't willing to, or they were offended by something he said. But so we're not arguing that, and we're not denying that our position sometimes causes that. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm offended when freaking churches put up the color flag because it's like you're forgetting that the Bible is classifies this as sin, but because gay marriage and all that. But we're arguing that Calvinism causes people to leave because people find contradictory beliefs in it and cannot reconcile them. Like Derek Webb said, he said, I can't seem to, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but he's like, I can't seem to solve the contradiction between total depravity and perseverance of the saints. And since I can't seem to fix the contradiction, my only logical idea is to leave. So,
but most of us don't see there's a contradiction. So that's just, again, it goes back to his, I mean,
that doesn't mean there isn't one, but
it doesn't mean there is either, because I would simply say, and the answer is no. I'm asking a rhetorical question, but you'd have to say, like, well, what was up in Derek Webb's life? I mean, what was he into? What were some of the issues going on? Obviously, he's a celebrity and all this stuff. So I don't know. I think
he
can I go ahead and address it? I'll go to address that, and I'll address John 6. So about what you guys are talking about with Derek Webb. I would say, and I know I've said this before, I would say that the ultimate reason is not just really like contradiction. I mean, it is per se, but it's really, what the end result of it yields, which is people just can't trust God. Like that's what it boils down to. You know what I mean? When they take all these contradictions and they try to harmonize it or whatever it is that they're having a hard time with, in the end, they cannot trust God. And you already know what I'm going to say as to why they come to this conclusion of why they can't trust God. So I'm not even going to repeat it. It's being like broken like a dead horse.
Well, you say because the decrees and stuff?
Not just the decrees, but again, the contradictions that people do find, like, hey, I'm totally depraved, all right, but you know what, I'm saved, but you know what they say, if I leave, it's as if I was never saved. And so it brings all these issues into play. Like,
not if you leave Calvinism, it's if you fall from the faith, so to speak, if you apostatize.
Yeah. Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, so now all of a sudden, like, it calls into question everything that they're doing, whether it's, their prayer life, being filled with the Holy Spirit, being led by the Spirit, everything that they had, the whole thing, all that stuff, whether their prayers are answered, they have to look at all that and be like, if I was never saved, then that could not have been God acting in my life. Maybe it was some other spirit. And that calls into question, well, was the pastor duped as well? Because I mean, look at everybody else like that. So and these are the things that they have issues with. The second thing is that you mentioned John 6, and and so it says, this is why I told you, and that's the main part I want to focus on, that no one can come to me unless it is granted him by the Father. Now, this is why I told you presupposes what? That there was a way that you were granted by the Father, so that way you can come. If you go backwards to what Jesus said in verse 45, he said, look, all those, all those who have been taught of God and things like that, come to me, or something like that. He said something in verse 45.
The prophet,
either way,
the teaching by teaching and all that stuff.
Yeah. So, the way that God did the granting was the same way that he did the drawing. Now, the thing is, both verse 44 and 65 end up saying, despite all that, it says that the end of it yields that now they can come. The question is, will they come?
Not
or will
always.
they not come just like those guys end up leaving? You know what I mean? And so when you see it just as clear as day like that, then, you know, that means that whatever the Calvinism is trying to read into that, it's not there, which means that perhaps it's never been there.
Now,
And all I did was just read the scripture.
We would take it, though, that, I mean, we're reading the scripture too. So if no one can come unless it's created by the Father, the condition 100% is based on the Father's desire, wishes, whatever reasons he has. As far as verse 45, let me ask you this. Just pretend for a second that the Calvinist is right, that God grants certain people to come and those that he grants will come, which is what we kind of believe. Just pretend that you believe that's right. How would that look at the ground level day to day today?
How that would look?
How would God bring people? And so in verse 45, when he talks about teaching and that's just the manifest. That's just how stuff works out. Or even today, like maybe you talk to someone at Starbucks and you're witnessing to them. I don't know, that could be part of the whole drawing part.
Yeah. The way that. Okay, well, go ahead.
It kind of depends on the person because, you know, obviously not everyone can be reached the same way. Some people get reached through apologetics. Some people get reached through a preacher or whatever. It kind of depends on the person. But obviously, when he draws someone, another word for that, the Greek word there can also mean lead, if I remember correctly. And I think this is found in Thayer's lexicon, isn't that it, Matt?
Most scholars say it's like a drag, like a actual force.
Well, but the thing is, this Greek word, if I remember correctly, even according to Thayer's lexicon, who, if I remember correctly, was a Calvinist, seems to also admit that this thing can be called lead. And in the end, it also says in John 12:32 that God will draw all men. So the way I would say it from the ground level, this looks like universalism. And so I would say if that's the case, then we would have to agree with the logic of a universalist in order to be consistent with the Calvinist. And if
you say John 12, if you say John 12 means he's drawing, if you correlate 644 with 1232, that he's drawing, those drawn will get raised up, and then, oh wait, he's going to draw everybody, so therefore everyone has to get raised up. Then that's what we say to you guys, that you're in a universalist position, because we have a totally different understanding of John 12.
No, you don't.
Okay, can I go ahead and kind of respond a little bit?
Sure.
Okay, so you know, there's something you asked me before I get to John 12. And that is, you asked me, well, how would all this kind of like play out today if God only chose particular people, right? He's not going to go and try to draw everyone. He's only going to go and try to draw some people. You're asking me how that will play out. It will play out the same exact way that is playing out as if he draws all people. You know what I mean? You have, I think the biggest example and that I always love to point to is miracles. Like you have in Acts 16. There was a Philippian jailer. He heard some Jewish men singing praises to the Lord. It doesn't say how long they were singing. Could have been for days. We don't know. Next thing you know, the jail crumbles. There's this angel in bright light. And in the end, everyone leaves. And he's about to go ahead and kill himself because he already knows what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, Paul and Silas say, hey, wait, chill, man. And from there, he runs and he gets on his knees and he says, sirs, what must I do to be saved? Perhaps maybe in the singing, he heard about the gospel or something. He must have heard something to know to ask that question, something. But that was his response to this big miraculous thing. Now, that's just one thing that I believe that God uses to go ahead and to draw people to him. You know what I mean? I believe in miracles. You know, there's other things as well, you know, like discussions like this. There's all types of things that God can go ahead and do to draw people.
But you're assuming he's drawing. You're assuming he's drawing every single person without exception, right?
Yes. Now the second thing is,
we say he's drawing those that he chose, and you guys are saying he's drawing everyone, and it's up to man to decide. Basically,
but
I got it. And also one more thing I did want to say is that you know, this is a part that always kind of got me. When you do look in John 6:44, anybody could go ahead and, you know, just like Josh said, pull up any types of lexicons. But it's funny because we all know that there are unabridged lexicons, you know, the ones that give the Greek word, what it means, and the verses that cite it. And, you know, once you do that in Thayer's unabridged Greek lexicon, guess what happens? It doesn't end up citing, you know, to drag. No, it cites to draw or impel with inherent power or moral character. You know, and meanwhile, you see other passages in the Bible that says, with loving kindness have I drawn thee. Like, if you're going to go in and physically drag somebody, you don't need to do that with loving kindness.
Well, we're not
Unless you're
saying,
trying to,
yeah.
you know what I mean? So
It-
you can even see how the word is used in the scriptures. You know what I mean? If you're going to go to draw someone by teaching them, just like in verse 45 says, you know, the taught is God, and the sound drawing and teaching, then to me, that doesn't seem like you would drag somebody. But Calvinists, they have to use that one, even though all the examples in the Bible don't point to that when it comes to the gospel.
So we don't have that problem either. We don't have to accept. So the thing is, we don't have the problem of universalism. We have a perfectly reasonable explanation. Is by saying that the Calvinist is incorrect by assuming that this word draw means drag, and that that interpretation is incorrect, in saying that it can draw in the context of everybody, like he said, by compelling, by powerful compelling,
By inherent power,
but not irresistible as the Calvinist preaches.
So you
that,
so
Can I
on
say
John
something?
12 though.
Go ahead, Martin.
One sec, Martin. Let me just say this one point. On John 12, you're saying that Christ is drawing every single person who ever lived, right?
yes, he said, if I be lifted up, I will draw all men unto me. But that doesn't mean that drawing there automatically results in a person being saved. Boom. He doesn't mean it in that sense.
Right. But why? So in John 12, and you probably know this, the Calvinist understanding is it's all without distinction, right? Because in verse 20, the Greeks showed up. So you had Jews and Greeks, and you have the whole context, I believe, supports the Calvinist position. But also, if you have, when you go to John 12, if you keep reading past 32, he's talking to these people. Verse 39, I'm just looking at it here. It says, therefore, they could not believe. And he was fulfilling prophecies, the blind in their heart. And I guess, you know, the next argument would be judicial hardening. But Christ over and over talked with people to their face. And instead, he didn't try to woo them in or whatever it was, whether it's John 6 or John 12. He did the opposite. He hid from them, or he knew who wouldn't believe and couldn't believe. And then he, you know, only you believe, you do not believe because you're not of my sheep. It's not, you're not of my sheep because you don't believe. So when we look at the context, it's a very specific thing, and we can get into effectual stuff. And obviously it's a big topic, but Martin, go ahead, jump in, man.
Go ahead, Martin.
I just want to say hello. How y'all doing?
Hey, what's going on, big man?
I'm good, thank you. My position, I am Calvinistic. So
we'll fix
just
that.
I doubt that. I doubt that seriously. But I have a question for y'all. Like the gentleman that said he believes John 12:32 is drawing all people without distinction, like every single person.
We both said
exception.
So,
I'm thinking exception.
Okay,
yeah, not exception.
So when that was written, Jesus is saying a statement. How do y'all understand that applying to like all the Old Testament pagans? Because Jesus is saying this like at that day, and like when you read the Old Testament, like God says, only Israel have I loved. I think that's Amos 3:2. You know, even though God knows
Jacob have I loved.
No, talking about Amos 3:2. Israel only you have known. Like that known there in the Hebrew is an intimate covenant love.
Exactly.
So God doesn't have that for every single person. Like even in the Old Testament context, when that's being said, he's openly saying that I have loved you out of all the families of the earth. Now you fast forward, the Son of God is on the scene, And in John 6, when he just talks about like he's going to draw particular people and raise them. So I'm just trying to figure out y'all position with John 12:32. How does that apply with every single person? Like, because we know by seeing stories in the Old Testament that God uses Israel to wipe out pagan nations, women, children, child, beast. You know, like he made no exception. So I'm just trying to figure out how you read that into the text of scripture. You know.
Okay.
Go ahead, Matt, and then I want to respond to something that Derek mentioned. So
sure. If someone can bring up John 12:32 and read it, there's something specific I want to go ahead and bring up.
Okay, I got it. Okay.
And then from there, I'll hit all the other points that he had concern about.
Actually, yeah. I mean, that's partially what I wanted to do as well, though. But yeah, here's what 32 says. And I, when I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all people to me.
Can you read the next verse?
He said this to show by what kind of death he was going to die.
Very interesting. So,
but that still doesn't prove. I know. I think I know what you're trying to do, but it still doesn't prove like your position.
Well, you have to hear me out first.
Because we know the high priest. Like,
you have to hear me out first.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
It's okay. No, it's absolutely fine. You know, when I read things like that, and John talks about that, that lets me know that Jesus said what he said, and I'm just getting this right now, like, and John said something after that as to how he understood what Jesus said. So whatever Jesus said was talking about all men, he connected it with like Christ dying on the cross. This is the same John that spoke about John 3:16, all that, and John 17, right? And so when I read all that, I emphatically, with many other scriptures, obviously we can go to, obviously, where I come to the conclusion that Christ really did shed his blood for all men. Now, your question was, there were two questions. There was one question and there was one concern. Your question was, Matt, I hear what Jesus is saying about for God so loved the world. That's great. I hear what he's saying about all men. That's great. The question is, well, Matt, what do you do about all those pagan people in the Old Testament, you know, that are already dead and gone? You know, did he love them too and die for them too and things like that? I would say two things. One, that's not like the sphere or focus or concern or emphasis that Jesus or the apostles even push. You know what I mean? They're talking about, when they say everybody, they mean everybody, you know, but they never ended up saying everybody from all time. But of course, will we exclude everybody from all time? No, we wouldn't. You know, it's just that they're trying to make an emphasis saying, look, Jesus died for you. That's the reason why Paul himself said, look, Christ died for sinners. It's like, oh, well, isn't everybody a sinner? Well, Christ died for the ungodly, Romans 5. Well, I mean, we all do get a little ungodly sometime, even after we're saved. So they're trying to find ways to say, hey, look, man, Christ died for everyone. So when you add the question, well, what about the Old Testament pagans and things like that are already dead and gone? I would say, well, yeah, I guess you could include them too. But if you have some type of follow-up question that would try to stump me some way, then I would say, well, yeah, maybe there's a way you could stump me with that concern there. But it doesn't like negate or override all the other stuff that the apostles and Jesus are trying to emphatically say. Now, the other thing is that you said, you know, God is obviously showing that he has a special love for Israel. Therefore, your conclusion is God don't love everybody. Well, or at least he don't love everybody the same way. Right?
Not in the covenantal sense.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So you look throughout the Old Testament and you have to put a context to it. What's the context? The context is, hey, I'm God. I want to go ahead and show my love to the world. Matter of fact, I need an example. So I'm going to go ahead and form a people for myself, as he says in Isaiah. I'm going to go to deliver them. I'm going to put a ring on their finger called a covenant, and I'm going to be faithful to them. I'm going to love them. And I'm going to do it in such a way where it's going to want to draw everybody else into this covenant. Do you see how I'm treating Israel? That's how I could treat the rest of y'all. I want y'all to come on in, and that's the reason why he says I have this particular love. But the problem is people take that context, rip it up, throw it away, and then what they inject in there is, look, you see that God has this particular love, therefore God don't love everybody the same. Some people even go as far as to say, well, God just don't love everybody. But you see, it's so easy to do that once you just like get rid of the context. So like, yeah, so that really goes to show that like, yeah, like of course he had this particular love. Like, just like I got love for my wife. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, I love her to death, But you look at God's context and he's trying to get everybody in. So if he wants to go to use Israel to do that in the Old Testament, then he can do that. But I think that,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, well, I would like to respond to say that I hear what you're saying, but I don't see God doing that in both Old Testament and New Testament. Like specifically when Jesus was on the scene and he had the disciples that he spoke in parables and told them, you have to eat my flesh and drink my blood. Mm-hmm. The reason why he ultimately did that and confused them, like he says, because you are not my sheep, because it wasn't the Father's will. So even if you're trying to push the notion that God is calling everybody to himself, I don't see that. I don't even see God even trying to do that.
Well,
like in John 3:36, there's only two classes of people: those that believe and those that still have the wrath of God on them. So the new covenant promise to believers is that God is going to cause you to walk in his ways. That's
okay.
For us.
Can I respond to that real quick?
No. Actually, wait. I need to respond. I want to respond to something first. We were meant. Sorry, Matt, but I gotta say this before I lose it. Okay, so
we're gonna go for about 10 more minutes, guys, if that's cool.
I understand.
All right. That's fine.
Yeah, that's good. Actually, I have to go. I have to go to work too, but I can stay for 10 more minutes. And I'll say this also. Thank you for letting me to have this little dialogue with y'all.
Yeah, and thank you. Yeah, man.
All right. First, John 12:39 actually disproves Calvinism if you look at it more carefully. He says, "Therefore you could not believe, but for again, Isaiah said." That's a context clue that he's mentioning something from the past. He has blinded their eyes and hardened their heart, lest they see with their eyes and understand with their heart and turn, and I would heal them. So what he's quoting here is Isaiah 6. I will be reading from the ESV. Hang on. Here we go.
The Calvinist version. Cool.
Oh my God. Hey, hey man, my preferred translation is New American. New American.
NASB, right?
I wouldn't call that a Calvinist translation just yet, bro. Because if you,
I love their translation of Philemon 1:14.
We've never read John 12 ever. No, I'm just going. Go ahead, man.
Anyways, make the heart of this people dull, and their ears and blind their eyes, lest they see with their eyes and hear with their ears and understand with their hearts and be healed. The thing is, this only supports Calvinism if you don't quote the previous 9 verses. This actually disproves total depravity. I hate working with such a small desk. Well, it's really big, but there's a lot of shit on it. Anyways, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne and high and lifted up, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him stood the seraphim. Each had 6 wings, and with 2 he covered his face, and 2 he covered his feet, and with 2 he fled. And one called, Holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full. And the foundations of the threshold shook at the voice of him who called. One the seraphim. I'm sorry, the foundations of the threshold shook at the voice of him who called, and the house was filled with smoke. And I said, Woe is me, for I am lost, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people for unclean lips, for my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Then one of the seraphim flew to him, having in his hand a burning coal that he had taken with tongs of the altar. And he touched my mouth and said, Behold, he has touched your lips, your guilt is taken away, and your sin is atoned for. And I hear the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send, and who will I go for us? Then I said, here I am, send me, who said, go to this people. And then keep on hearing, but do not understand, keep on seeing, but do not perceive, and so forth. This is talking about judicial hardening. This is saying because they continuously rebelled against God, God therefore chose to harden their hearts the same way he did to Pharaoh. This disproves Calvinism, because if Calvinism is true, then this is impossible. You can't go any further. You can't be hardened any further if Calvinism is true. Same thing with Romans 9. When they talk about, says, I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy and all that, he's quoting Exodus 33:19, where where Moses is talking to the Israelites in this context. If Romans 9 in this context says that he will only have mercy on the elect, then you have to say Exodus 33:19 is saying that God will only have mercy on the Israelites. That's an exegetical fallacy. And
let me say this point real quick. So
I wanted to address what he had said real quick. Is that okay? I'll be really quick because I know we only got less than 10 minutes. All right. So like I said, your whole concern was, I see Jesus talking in certain ways that seems like it's keeping people out. Therefore, I'm going to conclude that God ain't drawing everybody. He's only drawing particular people.
Yeah, he's not he's not drawing them to save them. As the new covenant says, I will cause you to walk in my ways. I will remove the heart of stone from you. Even though the context is speaking to the nation of Israel, that also can apply to us.
And Martin, you brought up, you said,
even then, so you're just backing up what I said. So can I kind of address what you said real quick?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, just real quick. I know we got less than 10 minutes. Real quick.
I know. I have so much I want to say, but go ahead.
I know. Right? So, all right. So, like, you just further prove my point. You know what I mean? Like, this is what God's doing. But I think there are things you have to consider. Here they are. Like, from everything I'm thinking of, one, the people that, that Jesus keeps on talking to like this are Pharisees. Now, if you go ahead and look at Israel's history, we know that they were very rebellious. No matter how many times God gave them chances, they continued to go after other gods. I mean, just continually. And they continued to rebel all the way up into the New Testament.
But wasn't that God's plan?
Say it again?
Wasn't that God's plan for them to do that?
No.
Yep.
No. But anyway.
It just said it was prophesied.
No, I never said it was. I never said that was prophesied. But I wanted to continue.
Okay, go ahead.
I wanted to. Yeah. So that continued like all the way up into the New Testament, and it kind of reminds me of something in Isaiah 66, which is the way God kind of dealt with the New Testament Pharisees. In Isaiah 66, God said, "Look, you chose your rebellion. Therefore, I'm going to choose your delusions. Like, I'm going to go in and judge you. And because they continue to harden their heart, go after other gods, do all this stuff, then that means by the time that Jesus came on the scene, their heart was so hard that they did not see Jesus as Messiah. No, they were worried about a whole bunch of other stuff. And in that blind state, God kept them in that blind state for one reason. And that was God used their rebellion that they did by their own free will to go ahead and cause the Messiah to die. That's what he did. They were on the other side of God's plan, right? At first it was supposed to be Isaiah 46:9. They said, no, you don't want to do that? Fine. I'm going to put you over here. And what happened is that they killed the Messiah. So we see that. Then after that, you have Acts chapter 2. Despite everything that these Pharisees did, you had Peter preach to them the gospel, which they said they were pricked to the heart. Then after that, you have Acts chapter 3, where they had priests of Levi who ended up hearing the gospel and they believed. Then after that, you had Acts 15, where you had the Pharisees who believed, but of course they thought you still had to keep the law. Then after that, you had the biggest Pharisee of them all, Paul. And so despite God using them to go ahead and, crucify the Messiah, it seems that it's a little odd if these Pharisees were supposed to be like the people that God's supposed to harden and just damn forever without giving them any other chance. then you would not see those Pharisees come into the faith like that. And you surely wouldn't see Romans chapter 11 where it says, look, hey, I know they're cut off, but you know what? Paul is saying, look, they could be grafted back in again. Those Jews that rejected the Messiah and all that, they could be grafted back in again. And Paul ain't particular when he says that. No, he don't leave no particular like certain one. No, like he said, if you're a Jew who don't believe, like you can be grafted back in again. You could come on back in, And so when I look at all that, it's hard to conclude, you know what? God's only drawn a certain amount of people, and the rest of y'all, I'm sorry. Like, no, I can't read all that. And
I don't see how that answers my question. I guess maybe like we'll have to have more time, like talk about this.
But presupposing, I think
you'll have to show how that's not answering your question.
But the people that rejected Jesus, they stumbled over the stumbling stone, correct?
Yeah, that's not all they did.
Of course.
Okay,
didn't you hear everything else I said?
Wait, hold up. But the Bible says that's what they were appointed for. That's 1 Peter 2. So God pointed them for that. Like right. I understand everything about volitional choice. Like if you want to use free will, I would use limited free will to make more choices.
Right. But in Romans 11, it said that they stumble beyond repair. Yeah, I mean, you have to harmonize all that. That's what I'm saying. I hear what you're saying.
I'm following everything you said. That's how I came. Wait, no, that's how I came. That's how I came to like being a Calvinist.
Yeah.
So, but your everything you said did not answer a particular redemption of God giving grace to all people. Well,
you didn't go into that. You focus on like, hey, God's only drawn particular people.
If you
want to talk about that, then we could.
But we can't do it today because I gotta go to work.
Let me say something real quick, like 1 minute here. So I think one point Martin alluded to it, but God, you guys realize the Father's drawing in John 6.
Yes.
Christ is drawing in John 12. Mm-hmm. But even Martin alluded to it, and Christ says this many times, he's doing the will of his Father.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the will of his Father is that the Father is giving people to the Son, and those are only the ones that can come. I mean, it says it over and over. So
you're limiting that phrase to that particular thing that the Father is doing, as if that's the only thing that the Father's will is.
The Father's will is to save people from every tribe, tongue, and nation.
Correct.
And also, it is the Father's. It's also the Father's will that that Christ would save sinners.
But
not to save all humanity head for head, because if that was the case, because if that was the case, it would have been easy for the Son, once Adam sinned, for Christ to come down and die right there. But it wasn't God's plan.
Whoa, no, wait a minute. Then you're basically saying that on what you think God would do or how he should have done it.
I'm just saying like that would be a quick fix. To say
it would be a quick fix, but that's not what God chose to do. And
he doesn't.
How many people did God drown in the flood of Noah that never was given sufficient grace?
Lots, and we don't have a number of that. But what does that have to do with what Christ said?
I'm using it as an illustration to prove that God uses Noah and his family. He didn't call the rest of the people that drowned.
That's true.
This is change the topic to the joke.
That's true, but the problem is that has no bearing on we have to deal with what Christ said, right? John 3:16. All that we can't take something over here and be like, look how God did over here.
The people he left for the world are believers. Like he says that. That's why I even brought up like the promise of the new covenant.
You're saying that he loves all believers? You said he only loves believers?
Yes, that's what.
Okay, then if he only loves believers, not only do you have to explain the difference between world and believers in John 3:16, but you also have to explain. You also have to explain what God said to the rich young ruler when it said, and he loved him, right? Mm-hmm. And he still went away, but he loved him.
And Peter also says in his letter Peter also says in his letter that he also loves those who preach damnable heresies. Those who preach damnable heresies are not believers, yet he still loves them. So if he only loves believers, that's a contradiction.
Well, what's the gentleman's name? Not the last gentleman in talk. The guy was talking. Matt. I'm sorry, Matt. I had no idea what your name was. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's my poet name. I'm sorry.
No, but like in the John 3:16, like 18 passage and 36, it's clear. It's believers. God loves believers in a covenantal way, in an intimate way. The way I love my wife, the way you love your wife.
What's it say in verse 18?
You want me to turn you there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have time to do that, or?
Yeah, let's just wrap up the final little argument pieces here, and then we'll call it.
Okay, no. Only thing I just want to say is, guys, thank you very much. Hopefully, maybe one day, we can do this or whatever. But
this hasn't been solved in hundreds of years, man. So I doubt.
I posted something because y'all were talking about Job earlier, and I kept posting like, read Job 42 verse 11 when it talks about God is basically the cause of all the evil that happened to Job. Like it talks about his friends and his family came to comfort him because of all the evil that God brought upon Job. Even though God used a secondary means as the devil to do it.
A perfect
y'all may disagree with what I'm saying. Only thing I'm saying is that just take a look at it. And just, I don't know how we'll be able to talk about it again. We probably talk about something else again, but
I'll say this though.
But again, like, I love y'all. Yeah, I never met y'all day. I never met y'all a day in my life. I love y'all. I consider y'all brothers in the Lord. Cool. I disagree with y'all theologically on certain things, and
you won't for long.
That's it.
Awesome, Martin. Thanks for popping in here. Do you guys, Josh, Matt, any closing?
I will say this. I'll say this one last thing, though. A perfectly moral God creating evil is a logical contradiction. That is not possible. You can't.
Is it wrong for God to tell us to be holy as He is holy, and we can't do it?
Yes, exactly. That's when
He tells that to Israel.
If He decreed you would do the evil, then yes, it is.
If He didn't decree for you to do it, you wouldn't do it.
Says who?
The word. Like if He didn't decree it, like all the actions that happen in time that we experience. If He didn't decree these events to happen, they would not happen.
There's not one scripture that says.
Show me a scripture and I'll listen. But unless
there's not one.
There's many scriptures that talk about decree.
Wait, but hold on. But I'm interested in what Josh said because I gave an illustration when God tells Israel to be holy as I am holy. We can't do that.
Holy about
and he punished Israel for not living up to that standard.
There is nothing holy about a God who can decree evil.
No, wait, Josh, do you understand the scripture I'm saying? God tells Israel to be holy as I am holy.
Yes.
And we can't do that. And He punishes them for their wickedness.
Okay.
He punishes them because they can't keep His moral law. Do you understand that?
I'm so glad he said that.
But why can't they though? Why can't they?
Because we're fallen.
Why are
we're fallen and sinful? From Adam.
Fallen?
From Adam's sin.
And why did Adam sin?
Because that was God's plan for Adam to sin.
That's my point. You can't have a moral God if that's the case.
How so?
Because a morally perfect God can't do something evil. A morally
God didn't do it. Adam did. Only thing I said that was God's plan for Adam to fall. Meaning for instance, well, I'm gonna use me. Like whenever I make it,
Martin, you're just proving what I'm saying.
I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying, friend.
No, I'm not. You're not understanding the fact that.
Well, you're getting into there's a lot. There's efficient causes and all this stuff, and God.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it just sounds like to me, y'all perspective is saying the cross was plan B. My perspective is saying the cross was plan A from the jump.
It is plan B. That was never what God wanted. Because God never wanted man to fall.
So when did God gain knowledge that the fall was going to happen, or did He know it was going to happen?
He knew what was going to happen. Let me explain it how. There's just a way you can explain it from a non-Calvinist perspective. There are two different theories in the issue of time. I accept the B theory. This is the idea that all moments in time are equally real. This is not the theory of the common man, but like this conversation, the beginning of it is still happening. Our deaths have happened and our birth is still happening. Every moment is equally real. And God being outside of time exists in every moment. And the reason why God knows what you'll do prior to you doing it is because since he lives in the future and we only live in the present, he lives in past, present, and future. He can see every event. And when the universe was created, Michael Jones of Inspiring Philosophy puts it like this, that all actions are actualized in an instant, in a manner.
So God's responding to what he knows is going to happen?
Yeah, that's exactly my point. I'm not a Molinist, but I take the Molinist perspective that God takes human free choices into account and does his best to try, and then tries to make the most desirable outcome happen.
So God foresees a world where Adam's going to sin, multiple rapes, multiple murders, multiple cannibalism, and he has no purpose for that at all. Basically, what he's trying to do, but the best he can, is to bring good out of evil.
That's a false dilemma that Calvinists always.
I'm just asking God on this question, because actually, that's all I'm doing.
I know, and I'm saying that because God didn't create, therefore it doesn't have a purpose, is a false dilemma that guys like James White and all them really love to paint. And I used to be a fan of James White, but I'm very skeptical of him now.
But you'd have to give your.
Okay, wait. I'll just say this. I just want to say this. So, did God want a new heavens and a new earth more than he wanted a fallen creation?
What do you mean? I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
No, like Christ is going to redeem his people. He's going to hand over creation to the Father. When did God gain that knowledge that this is ultimately what I want? A new heavens and a new earth and a people. That's why I'm saying, from my perspective, my understanding, that the new heavens and the new earth is what God wanted from the very beginning. And basically how I put the Derek the other day was talking. Is that I understand that
didn't want that. I see where you're coming from now, and I'm saying no, he didn't want that. He said he wanted creation to be as it was, already perfect, and of course, there does.
So he failed.
Well, yeah, I was going to bring that up. So basically, God knew that sin was going to be in the world, but he chose not to stop it. So he basically came up with Plan B to have a new heavens and a new earth, but which he could have done that from the very beginning.
There's only two ways you can prevent evil from happening. Either don't create anything at all, or don't give creatures with free will. Because in the end, it's pretty. I think it's logically impossible.
Okay, what free will does a person have when they're born like a vegetable?
Hang on. I'm saying I think it's logically impossible to create a world where people always freely choose to do the right thing. That might not be logically possible.
Heaven.
And so therefore,
right? I was going to say that. But I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to say that.
Everyone becomes a compatibilist in heaven, bro.
I'm not finished.
And everybody becomes a compatibilist when they're saved too.
I'm not done.
We got to wrap it up, though.
I know.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, but I'm about to go. You can finish your statement again.
Sorry.
Love y'all. We're brothers in Christ. But go ahead, finish your statement. Then I'm gonna go.
Sorry, I didn't mean to outburst like that. It's irritating when you get interrupted. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to outburst like that. But anyways.
Chaos
God
and order, bro.
He has a desire for everyone to be saved, and he also has a desire for people to choose him freely. But because his desire for everyone to choose him freely is greater than his desire to save everybody, he chose to make people with free will rather than to just save everybody. That's how I say it.
Even from like an Eastern Orthodox perspective, they use different categories, like God's antecedent will versus like his permissive will. Well, God's antecedent.
I've never heard any Eastern Orthodox use stuff. I've never even seen that as official.
I can give you a father from the Eastern Orthodox. Like,
you may be able to give me a father. There's a difference between that and a consensus of like, this is just how everyone thinks.
Who's everyone? Who's everyone?
Eastern Orthodox.
I'm talking about like just Eastern Orthodoxy in general. Yeah, I mean, I can't choose like a nice perspective from a church father and then assume that on all Eastern Orthodoxy from all spans of time period. I find interesting things, but I can't do that. You know what I mean?
No, I was just proving the point that this idea that started from particular church fathers came all the way down to Roman Catholics, and then certain Armenians even have this idea that God's antecedent will is that all be saved. He doesn't desire sin, but he operates based off a consequent will, based off of people's freedom of choice.
I've never, again, like I said, I've never heard someone say this caused that, and then all of a sudden expanding the Roman Catholic. Like I've never heard of that.
Even Thomas Aquinas talks about that as well.
He's a Roman Catholic, right? So if that's the way he gets down, then that's great. But I don't think that has any bearing on the East. But I mean, hey, I'll study it. I mean,
oh no, it's cool. But again, I love y'all, brothers. Y'all wrong. The cross is plan A.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
Hey, Martin, let me ask you a quick question before you go. So the provisionist perspective was like, isn't Martin an Arminian? Or because I told him you were an Arminian like a week ago, but now you're a Calvinist. So
yeah, I'm a Calvinist. Basically, the short story is that I talked to Derek, and people amongst the Society of Evangelical Arminians said I sounded Calvinistic, but there was a certain point that I had tension with, and I called up Derek. He was kind enough to talk to me about it. We talked for like an hour and 30 minutes, and I was able to iron the issue out, but
it's a journey.
So real quick, I just did want to say that, the cross was never plan B or something like that or something, and not only was the cross plan A, the cross was the plan. So again, I don't know where
Adam had to fall.
I don't know where you're getting these.
The garden had to happen, basically, yeah.
So Adam had to fall, right?
No.
Okay.
He had to have if the cross was the intention from the get-go before Adam even existed. I mean, it had to have happened. I mean, that's just
unless he wants to say, well, God foreknew that it was going to happen, but it doesn't make it necessary that it was going to happen.
Then it has other issues.
I mean, I would definitely. I know you're trying to wrap it up, but I would definitely put it like this. It's like God's plan was obviously to have a relationship with His creation, right? That was his primary. That was his primary plan.
Amen. Yes, sir.
Right. So that means if there's anything that gets in the way of that, then of course there's other parts of God's plan that make sure that there's a way where that barrier is broken. And so I mean, you can look at it as like, hey, this is, you could say people that are wrong look at it as plan A, plan B, you look at it as one big thing or whatever. And for me, I really don't hash into that. You know what I mean? I just really don't.
I know, I got you. No, I respect that.
Yeah.
Like, respect that. I got that. No, because there's certain things in scripture that's like hard.
Yeah, it's just a mystery sometimes,
So when I'm saying like earlier, when God tells Israel to be holy as I am holy, like, that's a mystery. Like, he tells them to do something that they cannot do.
Not necessarily.
It isn't a mystery.
Not necessarily. It's something that you said before, and I was actually shocked that you said it, because not many people have found that answer. And when you look throughout the Old Testament, when he talks about that, he manifests that meaning in the moral law. I did a series, a lesson. You can look at it. It's called Jesus and the Law of Moses. I did it for Hebrew Israelites.
But like the covenant that he made with Israel in the land was like the 10 Commandments.
That's true. And 9 of them are moral, which proves my point further. So if you look at every time that God gets mad, about the law, and you try to compare it to like ceremonial versus moral, guess what you're going to find? Ceremonial, none. Moral, 100. And he'll say, look, do this and you will be clean. And he'll name these little moral things that people are to do. Hey, treat your neighbor right. Do this, do that. I mean, it's not very hard to do that unless your heart is filled with like selfishness and evil and all that stuff.
Let's do this, guys. Let's wrap this one up. And I want to say, before we wrap it up, I'm gonna play a quick outro here, but all of us are in the Irresistible Truth discussion group. It's just a Facebook group, and we talk about this stuff all day long. All 4 of us are in there. David Louis, who was on earlier, he's in there. A bunch of other people, about almost nearly 1,700.
Like, if the 2 gentlemen, if like y'all can, like, I would like to interact with y'all. Like, send me a friend request on like Facebook or something.
Sure.
Even write a post and all that. And
I even wrote a post. I even wrote a comment in the post thanking Derek for helping me work out my issue. So y'all can look for that and send me a friend request if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely would not mind.
Yeah.
All right. And then say your last pieces here and we'll wrap this up.
Yeah.
All right. I love y'all. Let's remember to keep the unity, the Catholic faith, small c.
Small
right.
C.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, nobody call nobody a heretic.
Right. Right.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry about that outburst, Martin. I just
No, man, it's cool. Like, no, it's cool because like I used to be like that, so it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I do my best to keep my emotions in check sometimes, but once in a while it comes out. But anyways, yeah.
I know it's hard to accept truth sometimes, bro, but it's all right.
Well, there's no truth.
God's gonna work on your heart. It's all right, brother. I love you though.
I love you too, man, even though you're wrong.
Okay. Okay. All right. Peace out, gentlemen. I love y'all. Take care.
Take care, Martin.
Peace.
Take care.
All right, all. Have a good day, and we will talk to you later.
So